Warning, this video will contain major spoilers for Telltale's The Walking Dead game. Now, I'm going to presume you're all over this game already, but just as a speedy refresher, The Walking Dead game focuses on the universe of the comics and is adjacent to the TV show. It is a point-and-click narrative-driven game where the main mechanic focuses on allowing you to choose your own dialogue, as well as about 5 big decisions per episode, some of which will affect your gameplay later on. We follow the story of Lee, who has just been arrested for murdering a man who was having an affair with his wife, but the cusp of a zombie apocalypse brings him to Clementine's house, where he takes this 8-year-old girl under his wing and vows to protect her and prepare her throughout the rest of the game. Episode 2 opens to the characters at an abandoned motor inn that Lee's group has transformed into their temporary safe house. The title of this episode paints an immediate picture for us. It's called Starve for Help. We pan over the characters and see that they're hungry, pissed off, and bored. It's really easy for us to empathize with the hunger, the fear, and the exhaustion that people must feel during an apocalypse. But something that I don't think is touched on enough is how fucking boring it must become. They've got nothing to do but sit around and be starving and despise each other. The only appropriate circumstance is to go hunting for food, and then comes the pressure of 9 hungry mouths depending on you. We're given a great setup in this episode where Lily has become disgruntled with being the group leader and handling the food rations, so she passes us some measly snacks and tells us to pick between 9 people to feed. By the way, give Clementine the apple. Not only does the player now get to solidify for themselves which characters they're vibing with so far, but we're demonstrated just how dire the situation is. There are no meals, just appetizers, which are also quickly running out. All of this is crucial context for what's to come. I see a lot of Let's Players go through the motions of this episode and are constantly questioning why Lee's group is so quick to trust some randoms. And I do get it to a certain extent, but it's also hard for us to truly understand how hungry and desperate for change these people are. When something on the bottom layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is significantly disrupted, our social skills, our cognition, and our decision-making skills reach an all-time low. These people are starving, not just for food, but for change and for mental stimulation. They're absolutely sick of each other, and to them, the motor inn is currently their prison. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward. 2 brothers approach the fence and they invite the group to come back to their dairy farm, where they offer to exchange food for the group's gasoline or petrol. The group hesitantly checks out the farm at first, and then once they get the initial all clear, the rest of the group follows. It should be mentioned that earlier on we saved Ben's teacher from a modified bear trap, and now we're encountering some ruthless bandits out on the road, which we think are going to be the main antagonists of the episode, but they serve another purpose, which I'll come back to later. We arrive at St. John's Dairy, and what a juxtaposition it is from the motor inn. This place is clean, tidy, well presented, and isolated. It looks like it's exempt from the apocalypse, like that doesn't exist here. And here's where I'm going to reach a little bit, but my friend pointed out that the farm parallels the Garden of Eden or even the Matrix. It seems perfect at first, truly a state of complete and utter innocence. But bookmark this, because we'll come back to our forbidden fruit or our red pill a bit later. We get to know the St. John family a little bit more here. Andrew is the confident brother. He leads a lot of the conversations and makes us feel a little bit more at ease than the rest of his family.
It's safer here than out there.
This place looks untouched. You'd never know the rest of the world is in ruins.
It's worth protecting, hence all the juice.
Danny is a little bit uneasy to watch. He has a really uncomfortable tone of voice and he just feels dreary, like something's not quite right but you can't put your finger on it.
2 sleeping bags. One of them's kid-sized.
Brenda is their mother, and she comes across as a little over-enthusiastic, but I love that there's enough plausible deniability here that this is just her southern hospitality coming out.
I'm Brenda St. John, and welcome to the St. John Dairy.
But we know why she's so keen, of course. Brenda offers us some food straight away. I always have a visceral reaction whenever Brenda shows the group her freshly baked, still steaming as she puts it, homemade baked goods. I can only imagine how the group must be feeling seeing this kind of quality of food being handed to them. And then we are asked to head out with Mark to patrol the fence and remove any stuck walkers. Andrew assures us that he will keep the electric fence off in the process. We get a bit of bonding time with Mark, which is nice because we don't know him all that well at this point. But him being a kind of a rando is purposeful and smart. In my opinion, if Mark's fate were to happen to anyone else that we know a little bit better, I think it could have been perceived as a bit too gruesome or untimely. Like, imagine if it were Carly, it's too close to home. So introducing a random character who I think is pretty much a glorified plot device works in this instance for me. Their little date doesn't last for very long though, when the electric fence randomly turns on and leaves them stranded on the other side. In this moment, raiders come out and attack them, shouting over and over that the St. John family did not hold up their part of the deal, more specifically that the bandits weren't getting the food that they were promised. If you weren't already on edge about this family, you probably are now. The immediate thought starts to flood in about what these bandits are saying. Why would the family break their deal? And why did Andrew turn the fence on? Mark gets shot by an arrow in his shoulder and you bring him back to the farm. It's really important to note here that it is not that big of an injury, and even Mark pretty much brushes it off.
I'm fine. I should just pull it out.
Oh, no, honey. Come on. Brenda's got you. Come on inside now. We'll have you all sorted out.
But Brenda is concerned for him. Very concerned. And she really emphasizes that he should go and rest under her care, so you leave him. The fence scene is really pivotal for me. It's the first time we see a crack in the facade. And I have a very personal anecdote of this moment. I played this game for the first time as a 14-year-old many years ago. I hadn't played much zombie media and was very naive to the whole concept of you can't trust anyone. So I just waltzed into this farm thinking, wow, this is sick. I'm going to tell them exactly how many people we have, all of our birthdays, all of our credit card numbers. And when I encountered this moment, I was like, fuck, I messed up. But what I love the most about it is there's still not enough evidence yet to draw any conclusions. We don't have any concrete proof. What we are left with is but a pit in our stomach that we can't yet explain. This is all exacerbated when Andrew immediately apologizes about the fence, saying that he turned it on once he heard Mark yell out in pain, which he thought was a signal. But crucially, when you go back and play it again, you'll notice that the fence turns on well before Mark makes any loud noises.
Holy fuck! What just happened?
This episode has phenomenal replayability. There's so many tidbits that you pick up on the more that you play it. I'm going to try and pick up on as many as I can remember as I go through it, but feel free to let me know if I've missed anything in the comments. Next, Lee sets off with the other brother Danny to go and scout out a nearby bandit camp. Lee finds some boxes with the St. John logo on it, and then he pushes them aside to find a camcorder. He notes that there's no batteries, to which Danny responds with this.
Battery's dead though.
Oh, good.
It's a small moment and easy to miss, but it is a really interesting detail on a second playthrough. To me, it's almost like it's a slip of the tongue, like Danny says it without even thinking, and is just lucky that Lee didn't dig further. Lee finds Clementine's missing cap in the tent before we're interrupted by this character, Jolene. Jolene is an interesting one for me. She has amazing potential as a background character, but feels a bit underutilized, and it all made sense when I read that a lot of her original dialogue was actually cut, presumably because it's such a long and jam-packed episode already. We don't get much time with her, but Jolene indirectly tells us that she's lost her young daughter. The way she presents herself is almost like she's in a state of psychosis. She now thinks that Clementine is her daughter, and that she needs to take her away from Lee. We find out at the end of the episode that Jolene was stalking Clementine at the motor inn and recording it all on the camcorder. She also alludes to the fact that she experienced sexual assault at the hands of bandits. Jolene explores the surface of a really interesting theme in zombie media, the treatment of women in a post-apocalypse. I'm sure that if it became our reality, there'd be a lot of Carlys and a lot of Lilies, but I think a shocking truth is that in tandem with the collapse of social norms and etiquette, the mistreatment and even commodification of women would become rampant. This is why I really wish we could have gotten more content with Jolene. Her backstory is really interesting and harrowing, and her stalking Clementine and stealing her cap is a loose thread that has no real payoff. I just get this unshakable feeling that she was meant to be connected in some way to the stranger at the end of the game, or perhaps she was meant to be him at one point. Their parallels of being crazy parents who have lost their children and trying to steal Clementine away from Lee by stalking her feel way too similar for it to be a coincidence, but I digress. The choice here is for Lee to either shoot her or let her keep talking. If you decide the latter, you get an interesting little piece of dialogue.
Go on, tell him, boy. Tell him what you got in mind for...
Most importantly though, Danny says this.
It's a clean shot, though. Right through the forehead. That's good shooting right there. Still, what a waste.
If you still have any hope left for these people, or you've missed all of the clues, you might interpret this as Danny talking about a waste of life. If you're cynical, maybe you think he's annoyed about the perfectly good ammo wasted on her. But if this is your second playthrough, you know he's talking about a waste of food. What a line. Also, just one more thing.
Hardly. She had a crossbow pointed at my forehead.
It was actually pointed at my forehead. Dickhead. So we're back at the farm. Clementine's winning the cutest character of ever awards by licking the salt lick. And we briefly explore the barn before Kenny comes up and clocks some St. John tea. He thinks there's something amiss with this barn. He tells Lee he saw some disturbing things behind the locked door, and you do a puzzle to distract Andrew and open it up. What's important here is that Kenny is the only character who really wants to suss this place out properly. Larry is busy schmoozing the mum, Lily thinks that Kenny's being paranoid, and Mark earlier was just about jumping out of his skin in excitement at the idea of this new place. Kenny says he has a family to protect, so he needs to go over this place with a fine-tooth comb. We don't get the choice as Lee not to explore, but I think this is an interesting crossroads for him conceptually. Here we reach the ultimate decision. This is the serpent, or perhaps this is the red pill. If Lee were to discard Kenny's proposition and live in blissful ignorance, he'd be living for a short time in this utopia. But it's not real. This farm is a facade. Instead, with the motivation of protecting Clementine, we take the apple and we take the red pill. We want to push this place to its limits and we want to break that facade, even if living in ignorance would be easier considering how hungry and desperate we are. We open up the doors and we see our consequence, just as Adam and Neo did. Just like that, there's the loss of innocence and the introduction of suffering and hardship. This dairy farm has a really dark secret, and Lee now has no option but to investigate further. After Andrew is surprisingly chill about us breaking into his secret abattoir, we are called for dinner and Lee excuses himself to go and wash his hands. We're drawn to the stairs, where we quietly creep up as the rest of our group prepare to eat. Just a little side note here that I absolutely love this shot of Lee, and it gives me chills every time. We go upstairs and are prompted to do a little puzzle where we connect a power cord and see a light shining through a little peephole, and then behind a bookshelf concealing a hidden door. This to me feels almost a bit like a Nancy Drew type click and point game where you're slowly uncovering secrets and it's a big eerie build up to a payoff. The payoff for us, of course, that has slowly been building up this entire episode is Lee opening the door, looking down and seeing Mark alive in a pool of his own blood, legless, and he says to Lee, "Don't eat dinner." Holy shit, they are cannibals. Lee rushes down to prevent Clementine from eating Mark's severed leg. If you aren't quick enough or you say the wrong thing, she will eat his flesh. Duck doesn't really care either way and keeps eating. Larry starts being a dick as per usual before the family slowly and eerily comes clean.
It's true.
Everything could have turned out okay for you folks.
He would have died anyway. We gotta think about living.
Settle down, honey. Growing up in rural Georgia, you're taught not to waste. It's how I was raised and how I raised my boys. Andy is right. We go after folks who were gonna die anyways, one way or another.
Like y'all.
There were no meals, there was no grand dinner, unless your group came along, because to this family, you are the lambs to the slaughter. Literally, you are their meal. Perhaps cannibalism could be excused in dire circumstances. Maybe if someone was bitten, if someone was on the brink of death, eating their meat might be a last resort out of pure survival. But this family doesn't wait for that opportunity, they create their own. This isn't just cannibalism to survive, this is murder, and you were their next victims. This family is so damn eerie that it's entirely possible they were eating people before the apocalypse, and this just became an easy excuse. Lee attempts to protect the group from the brothers until the unthinkable happens.
Please. Someone.
Lee wakes up in a locked meat fridge with some of the group. Larry's heart finally gives out, and it's up to us whether we help Kenny kill Larry or we help Lily revive her dad. Both end up with Larry killed, but we can make our allegiances known. This is a good choice, and the two friends I watched play this scene chose different options. There's strong arguments either side. We don't want to kill someone, and especially in front of Clementine. Lily looks desperate for our help, and we know this is the last person she has left. On the other hand, Larry tried to kill us back at the pharmacy, and like Kenny says, Larry is a large, tall, bulky man who will become a large walker, and we're trapped alone with him, and so is Clem. With hindsight, Kenny is obviously the better choice here because we're actually going to stick with him throughout the rest of the game, but this choice is definitely a solid test of morality versus survival. Out of the meat locker, the horrors of this episode persist. We're back in the slaughter room we saw before, but this time with chilling added context. We knew something was off the first time, so it felt unnerving and eerie. Now that we can directly picture what happens here, that feeling shifts to horror and disgust. The blood around the room is plentiful, so we know we're not the first people here. Lee chooses a weapon and then heads out with Kenny to take on the brothers. There's some dialogue here between them that's quite interesting.
Keep sitting out in the rain like a damn deer. Mama says we can't keep that many folks alive and not expect trouble. Pick one to keep and kill the rest.
And I pick which one of people.
Not the kid. Not enough meat on the tray.
This line is fascinating to me. If you didn't know, there's actually cut content that Danny, the creepy one, I guess creepier, is meant to have a line where he comments on how much he enjoyed when the young schoolgirls used to visit the farm, if you know what I mean. I presume that was cut because it shows too much malice, which might have given away the twist. But it's interesting that with that context, hearing these lines, where Danny asks to keep one alive and Andrew immediately responds with, "Not the kid, not enough meat on her," already knowing that Clementine would have been Danny's pick. It's just utterly chilling to think about. We rush Danny and he falls back into shit, a modified bear trap. It was them. This is the trap that got Ben's teacher killed. It wasn't for animals, it was for humans. Then the thoughts come flooding in even more. This family made a deal with the bandits to give them food, right? But they were also hunting the bandits. They were using bandit meat to give back to the bandits. But they ran out. That's why they came to the motor inn to find us. We were going to be their meal and their peace offering. Do the bandits know this is human meat? Jolene did, so why wouldn't they? Are they willingly eating other bandits, or worse, people that they know? Danny is trapped on the floor and Lee gets to decide his fate. But not before Danny says one more important line.
You gotta keep me alive. If you kill me, the meat gets tainted. You can't eat it. You're already tainted.
He's saying that if you kill people and let them turn, their flesh will rot so you can't eat it. But there's something that I just can't shake about that line. Why didn't he say that the meat gets ruined or that it's inedible? Something about the word tainted makes me feel like they're finding an excuse to keep someone alive. Like that's part of it for them. It's a challenge to see how much they can take from someone's body before killing them. And it makes me wonder how far they've gotten. Lee can either walk away or kill Danny with a pitchfork. Classic do you want revenge or do you not want to stoop to their level? What we don't know is that Clementine is watching this decision and she will react negatively if you kill him. Perhaps the worst response of all, she'll hide from Lee like she's frightened of him. This, in my opinion, is a critical turning point for a lot of players. Clementine was watching you with Larry, but this time the game let you think you were making an independent decision. Bad mistake. Clementine is always watching, and of course there's nothing more powerful than the influence of a little girl learning from you. That's why this game is so damn successful, and this is where you learn that lesson.
Wait, don't I get a vote?
Oh, Clem. Fine.
Of course you do.
Fine.
It's nice. He's my friend. We don't leave friends behind.
She's the only kryptonite I have in this game. If she wasn't here, I'd be so ruthless. I'd be so flipping ruthless.
Next up, it's Brenda's turn. We go outside and the nice, pretty farm under the sunlight is nowhere to be seen. It's storming, raining, the sky has a green hue, the moon shines down on the house and gives a real gothic horror aesthetic to it. The weather has turned on this place just as quickly as we have, and now we get to see it in its true form. It reminds me of when Coraline retraces her steps and what once was her dream house now is a complete nightmare. Lee approaches the house and we find Brenda holding Kat hostage. We push her back slowly and we see a glimpse of something flashing in the corner. It looks like branches of a tree in the wind until we can make out that it's human arms. Then we see it's a walker, but why would a walker be up there? Then we get this amazing shot. How ironic that Mark gets his revenge and now he gets to eat her. Finally, Lee engages in this fight sequence with Andy. They knock each other around until Andy gets the upper hand and tries to kill Lee on the electric fence, powered by the gas the group had agreed to trade for, I guess as it turns out, themselves as meals. Either Kenny or Lily will help you, and Lee lets out his anger on Andy. It's not expressly communicated, but you do get to choose how much you beat him up here. I love the reflection of Lee in the puddle next to Andy. To me, it's like Lee is being held a mirror to his own aggression and anger, which means I refrain from beating Andy up in my playthroughs. Though I do think the final sequence looks cooler with Andy's face beaten in. Lee begins to walk away before Andy starts to taunt him, egging him on to finish the job, but the rest of the group is watching your decision. Andy reveals something about himself here.
As soon as Dad and Mama get out here, you're all fucked!
You either kill him or spare him. The former gives you a sequence of Andy being electrocuted, and the latter gives you a really cool shot, especially after what Andy has just said. He waits there for his own mother, the person he's closest to in the world, yet she comes to him as a walker, ready to finish the job. The guy who ate other people is going to be eaten by his own mother who taught him how to do so. We pan up, and that was St. John's Dairy. So other than the last decision of stealing from the stranger's station wagon, this was the entirety of Season 1, Episode 2, Starved for Help. I think my favourite part about this entire episode, apart from how interesting it is to revisit, is how essential it is in the story of Season 1. Like I said earlier about me being naive in my first playthrough, after I encountered this truly shook me into never trusting someone at face value for the rest of this entire game and the franchise as a whole. It being Episode 2 is a crucial part of that. Episode 1 was reserved for learning the purpose of the game and some characters, but we needed a reality check of where we are and how bad this situation is. For me at least, I learned as much of a lesson as these characters did. Seldom can I remember a moment in gaming where I felt this utterly shocked, appalled, and blindsided. I was completely hooked on this game from this point forward, and now it's my favourite game of all time, and it has been for a decade. This episode is one of my absolute favourites. I think there's so much here to discuss and to ponder on, and there's so many questions that pop up for you as you're learning things about the farm. I think this is Telltale's Walking Dead at its absolute finest, and what an experience it is. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate your time. I have a lot more to say about The Walking Dead. If that's something that you're interested in, please let me know in the comments. And until next time, bye guys!